After so many years, Skull and Bones is finally releasing. The game has had 6 delays. 6! Hi, my name's Lewis or Lickety from Kakuchopurei, and welcome to Push to Talk, the weekly series where we talk about pretty much anything video games. Push to Talk is actually scheduled for Friday at 8 PM usually, but this week is a little bit of a special case because we have some exclusive footage on the brand new game Skull and Bones. A game that has been postponed 6 times, as I just said, which probably makes it one of the most postponed games in all of gaming history. 6 delays is already jarring to the fact that this game is actually getting released. But to add on to that, it's also gone through 3 different creative directors. And yet, here we are, 8 days away from the release date. I'm sure that many of you can't believe that it's actually here. Now, I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not too well versed around the history surrounding Skull and Bones. But I was given a chance to be flown down to the studio behind the game, Ubisoft Singapore, and participate in a media event which also coincided with a playtest as well. And as the embargo was just yesterday as of the publishing of this video, I'm kind of allowed to talk about my impressions. Now, before we get into that, it is important to understand the history of Skull and Bones because it is extremely storied and it's riddled with delays and quite a lot of controversy. As I mentioned earlier, before all of this, I wasn't really that well informed about Skull and Bones' turbulent history, but I have now done quite a bit of research, mainly thanks to IGN, as they posted an article that is literally titled The Turbulent History of Skull and Bones, so that will be my primary source for this video. So I'm just going to be giving a quick Cliff Notes rundown of essentially what happened, but I definitely do recommend you check out the video and article done by IGN, because it is just a phenomenal story that they've actually told. So Skull and Bones was initially revealed in 2017 at E3 by the then creative director Justin Farron, and was described as a shared systematic world where players can sail solo or form pirate gangs with friends. That, however, wasn't the case with the gameplay that they demonstrated. The gameplay showcased a 5v5 multiplayer mode called Loot Hunt, which kind of portrayed a 5v5 naval arena shooter. Despite stating that there's a lot more to the game and that the 5v5 mode was purely just a demonstration of the gameplay, the internet kind of just took it at face value and just saw the game for the gameplay that was showcased. The game was then scheduled to release in fall 2018. A year passes, and just a few weeks before E3 2018, Ubisoft delays Skull and Bones for the first time. In spite of this, Ubisoft still showcased the game, but showcasing a very different game from what was portrayed before. The gameplay that was showcased demonstrated a game mode called Hunting Grounds, which essentially pitted players against an even stronger warship, which, after having play-tested the game, is still an element of the game. With this, Skull and Bones was pushed back to 2019, and when 2019 finally came, it was delayed again until March 2020. And then a third delay was announced later in that year. 2020 finally arrives, along with a 4th delay, as reports begin to surface about management issues and misdirection within Ubisoft Singapore. Ubisoft remained silent about Skull and Bones until around July 2021, when a report from Kotaku reveals the chaotic state of development at Ubisoft Singapore. I'm not going to dive too deep into it, but a link to the report will be down in the description because you should definitely check out if you are interested in the history around Skull and Bones. The long story short is that the overall studio just lacked creative direction, and alongside that, it is alleged that the studio had a deal with the Singaporean government that Ubisoft Singapore had to release at least one of its own IP. Ubisoft Singapore hasn't really commented on the allegations of the deal with the Singaporean government, but there are a lot of anonymous claims that support these allegations. In light of this, Elizabeth Pellin was appointed as the new creative director to kind of steer the project towards a new vision focused on live service and open world experience because, well, it's a pirate game after all. Pellin is a 20-year veteran at Ubisoft and has experience with studios releasing their own, first IPs. So she was just the perfect person for the job and definitely helped with creating a concrete vision for the game. At least that's what is stated in the interview that IGN did. So in July of 2022, Ubisoft re-revealed Skull and Bones, showcasing significant changes in the gameplay and design, with the creative director Elizabeth Pellin kind of revisiting the initial description of Skull and Bones, but with a live service twist to it. Following the re-reveal, the game was slated for November 2022, but following this, 2 more delays incurred, and now we are where we are today. Now, that was as short as I could make it. I definitely missed out a lot of vital information, so as I said before, please do go check out IGN's original video and article on the turbulent history of Skull and Bones, because it's such a great video and it's such a great read, and as I said before, it's just a great story all in all. But now we can actually talk about the press event that I attended and just talk about the contents of what was presented alongside the playtest. So this is the article that I did on the entire event as a whole. The link for it will be available in the description below if you want to go a little bit more in depth, but they mainly cover the open beta, which is currently live right now until the 11th of February. It's in fact cross progression as well, so the progression that you make during the open beta will carry over to the launch of the game. But the main things that I talk about in the article are to do with the post-launch and the just essential roadmap of the game as a whole. They emphasize a lot on this endgame loop, which is this image here. Now you can see more details about the endgame loop in the article itself, but the thing I actually want to focus on right here, well, at least the thing that intrigued me the most, was the blue section, which says compete against new legendary pirate lords and other kingpins. The whole concept of Skull and Bones is that you start off as a meager pirate and you build yourself up and gain enough infamy till you become a kingpin. And because Skull and Bones is going to be an open world multiplayer game, as well as co-op as well, you're going to be able to compete with other players on a leaderboard. So essentially, the more infamous you get, the higher on the leaderboard you become, and that's just kind of how the leaderboard rankings work. Briefly go over the rest. Essentially, every season there'll be new loot to seize. You will constantly be able to grow your infamy and to just get ever more rich, and then every season as well there'll be new ways to upgrade your fleet and your ship. But I'm just kind of brushing over that. You can look more in depth on the article, but the main part I wanted to talk about was this part here, the year 1 roadmap. So yeah, as you can see here, the 4 seasons of the year have already been revealed. You've got Raging Tides, Chorus of Havoc, Into the Dragon's Wake, and Shadows of the Deep. Each season will come with its own boss, new territories, and also new ships, along with sometimes sea monsters as well. And all of them coincide with an event of sorts. So I'm not gonna lie, the roadmap does look pretty promising. I'm a little bit skeptical about the endgame loop, as I feel there may be a chance that it might get boring before the end of the season. So I am going to take that with a grain of salt. I'm not going to have my hopes too high for that. But yeah, in light of all of this information, it is very apparent that despite all the hurdles that Skull and Bones has had to overcome, Ubisoft is trying to take this game somewhat seriously, so that is promising. I know in this day and age that having a year 1 roadmap is kind of a given, but given to how messy the development of Skull and Bones was, I do find it kind of impressive that they even put in the effort to come up with a year 1 roadmap. To be fair, they've had a lot of time as well, so maybe I am giving them a little bit too much credit. But hey, I'm just trying to be optimistic because they put in a lot of effort to the press event that I went to, so yeah. But now we're at that part of the video that I'm sure that you've been waiting for, the playtest. Unlike other playtesters, we were only given a couple of hours to play. 1 hour of the beginning of the game and then 1 hour of the end game, where pretty much you're just max level. And after having seen the gameplay trailer, I was kind of looking forward to it because I'm a massive RPG fan. I love games like Skyrim and Starfield. So, you know, being able to customize your own character and kind of self-insert yourself into a world is my bread and butter. So, with that said, Ubisoft was kind enough to actually send us the recordings of our playtest, so we're gonna kind of just commentate over it as we play. So this is just the tutorial, where I think you're placed in a relatively decent leveled ship, and then you're just pretty much learning the controls on the naval combat side of things. But if you know anything about Skull and Bones, then you'll know that Ubisoft prides itself over its naval combat that it developed in Assassin's Creed 3, which it further polished in Black Flag. And sorry, Ubisoft Singapore was the team behind the development of that combat system. But essentially, this is a game that allows Ubisoft Singapore to kind of flex its muscles and say, hey, we're really good at developing naval combat, which they are. The naval combat is actually really, really fun. And if I comparing it to what I remember from Assassin's Creed 3, it definitely has come quite a long way, and it does feel a lot more polished than a game like Assassin's Creed 3, which is, you know, almost over a decade old at this point. So I spent quite a lot of time in the character customization because that's just what I love about these games, is just how well can I customize my character and how much can I make it look like me. One thing that did bother me about this character customization is that there is no option to be clean shaved. As you can see, I'm somebody who can't grow facial hair for shit, so not being able to like have that option did kind of bug me a little bit, but it does kind of make sense from a lore perspective because, you know, these guys live out on sea. They don't really have the chance to shave too often, so the movement and navigation when not in combat is relatively okay. There are some coves and like ravines that you kind of, if you have a bigger ship, it does become a lot harder to go down. So essentially, when you first start the game, you get stranded. Your original ship gets capsized, and then you are just pretty much given a boat called the Dao. It's just a tiny ship that really doesn't have any cannons or anything or any form of combat. So you're just kind of stuck just throwing spears off the side of it. So after the tutorial area, you kind of reach St. Anne, which is like one of the main ports in this game. This is where you can find like the cosmetic shop and then the blacksmiths and shipwrights and all that. You can't access them straight away. You've got to do some key story missions first, and then you get access to them along the story. Honestly, so far the game kind of lived up to my expectation. The dialogue's relatively cringe in certain places, but it's somewhat reminiscent of older Assassin's Creed games. So there is a story in this game. There is somewhat of a campaign. It's more of a co-op campaign though, kind of like Borderlands or kind of like Wrath. The game doesn't necessarily center around the story. It centers around you as a pirate as you progress and gain infamy. But I have to say, these story quests are quite MMO-like, which for me, I enjoyed. I know a lot of people could find it quite boring, so if you're not into that kind of thing, then maybe this isn't the game for you. But yeah, here I was just upgrading my ship. I finally got some cannons on board and whatnot, but this was actually around the time where we had to move on to the endgame section of the playtest. So this is the endgame section of the playtest. I went to go solo a world event, and I was completely obliterated, essentially. You definitely require a lot of teamwork to try and get through past these world events. And yeah, I think one thing that I found was that traversing the world is extremely tedious. Unless you get to a port, you can't really fast travel, and even then it costs you silver coins to fast travel, which is the most common currency in this game. And so yeah, say you're in St. Anne, trying to get to like a world event on the other side of the map, it says it will be like 10,000 kilometers like here. So St. Anne was just on the top right there. That took me pretty much most of my playtest, so it does take a while unless you fast travel to a closer port, which at this point in the game, I did have the ports unlocked, but I just didn't really know how to fast travel this early on in the playtest. I did figure it out in literally about like 20 minutes or so from now. So over here, I was plundering a port village. This was quite fun. It was relatively easy with certain enemies, but then I think I aggroed some of the, this guy, some of the Lepest fleet, which means that they're just tanky as hell. It was extremely annoying to try and fight these guys because it would take me like 10 minutes to kill them all each time, which usually you wouldn't be playing it solo. You would be playing it with a friend or whatnot. I'm sure they're going to scale this better when the game officially releases, but this is like end game content, and like I didn't really equip my ship well enough to fight these guys. But one thing I'm going to voice is a concern that Ubisoft is actually very aware of, and that's the lack of close quarters combat. For me, that's what made the naval combat in the Assassin's Creed games kind of just more fun. It immersed yourself into the role of being a pirate a lot more. The fact that you're not able to do that in this game does kind of disappoint me. I wish you were able to kind of like in Sea of Thieves, where you can just hop on other people's ships and just steal their ship. But so far, the game was relatively fun. I did kind of get lost in the game for a couple of hours, but compared to the game trailers, I'm not gonna lie, I did find the game somewhat lackluster. I just expected more out of the game. I expected to be more immersed in it, and it could have been the environment that I was in, but I wasn't enthralled as I was with other games like this. You know, right on the tail end of the whole Power World stuff, having grinded that game for, you know, way over 50 hours at this point now, you know, this game doesn't make me addicted like Power World did, for example. They are very different games, but I feel as though that this game had the potential to immerse me and to get me, you know, captivated as well as Power World did. And that was the expectation I had going into this game. Maybe that was my mistake, I don't know. But yeah, besides the naval combat, you know, at least for the end game, I just kind of got bored of it, you know. I got bored of the, you know, having to traverse the seas and you know, having to have really long battles at sea as well. It reminded me of the concerns that I had about the endgame loop. If we're going to talk about graphics, the graphics are actually really, really good. The only thing I have to complain about is maybe some of the character animations, especially during the dialogue scenes. I feel as though, for example, like the first mate, some of the animations can be a little bit stiff. So for me personally, it breaks me out of the immersion a little bit. So yeah, that's pretty much it for my initial impressions of the game. I think I want to save a lot of my other opinions till I get the chance to review the game, obviously. So as of right now, I can't say with full confidence that I'm looking forward to this game. It is fun, and the entire concept is intriguing. I love the idea of kind of, you know, a rags to riches story. That's a big reason for why people play, you know, games like Football Manager and be able to level up and bring like 5th division teams up to the 1st division, you know? Everybody loves an underdog story. Especially when you're able to self-insert yourself into that underdog role. But yeah, from the playtest, it lived up to pretty much everything that was presented. Still feel as though that there's just something lacking. Like, for all the time that it had, it feels like it's just doing the baseline of an action game involving a pirate ship. But if the endgame echoes my thoughts of the preview build I was playing, the outcome may not be so good. But yeah, that's Skull and Bones for you guys. Do let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below, your thoughts on the game and how it looks so far. I really don't know if I'm wrong to feel the way that it does, or if I'm just being a bit of a nitpick, or if I'm not being nitpicky enough. But I want to know if it's a game that will live up to the expectation that the world has kind of laid out for it. Because although it's a game that has been in development for like 8 years now, it's had so much time to perfect its craft. So after so many delays, we kind of expect something to be big, but in light of all the rumors and controversy surrounding the studio itself, it's kind of understandable that it's not at the level that we expect it to be at. So I'm kind of at a loss for words, really. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And if you did enjoy this content, then be sure to like, subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. And obviously, ding dong that notification bell to be notified when we upload next, because we upload videos every single week. Thank you guys for tuning in. My name's Lewis from Kakuchopurei, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Ciao for now.